In this video, we're going to talk about infrared LEDs and the purpose with a trail camera. These are your LEDs in the standard trail camera. Also, sometimes you'll use extra illumination and you'll get LEDs that have little lenses to help focus and expand the light. These are fairly inexpensive, run on 12 volts. And LEDs are important because this is one of the key functions of this camera, is to see at night. Now, these are usually infrared. You can get them in white light. Sometimes the National Geographic and wildlife people will use that. Usually if it's only going to be for a photograph, because usually if you're doing video, it will change their behavior a little bit. Usually not running off, but it does get their attention, kind of surprisingly. The big thing is that because of the function of LEDs and how they work with the sensors, there's usually a clicking sound that we'll go over in just a little bit. That's usually more alarming to the animals than the type of light that's used. Now, these LEDs will come in usually two flavors, one being 850 nanometers, another one 940 nanometers. And the 850 have a little bit of a pink glow, and the 940 don't have a glow at all. And this is of minimal concern, except when you are trying to hide these from the #1 predator of the world, that is human beings. Because a little bit of a pink glow, if you're looking directly at it, may alert the person that they're being observed. Typically, animals can't see this really at all. There's a few animals that can sense IR, but they're not really usually looking at it. Some frogs, some fish, some insects, some snakes will have a sensor, pit vipers, but that's not their vision, that's just a sense they have on that. So the animals you want to look at are really not going to see this really at all. So let's take a look at the range of what the infrared gives us. If we take a line going right across here, and we start off at about violet, and that's at 380 nanometers, and we go all the way over here to 750 nanometers, we get into what's called red light. And then beyond that, we get the infrared, which is near, and then far, which is at the 940. And we go down the other way, we start going towards really high energy, like gamma rays and X-ray and UV. UV. Right in the middle is yellow. Now this is really important because this is pretty much what the human eye is set up for. Now, the sensors that these cameras use are much more sensitive to the full spectrum of light that's out there that we don't see. Down this direction in the ultraviolet, and also this way. We know that ultraviolet, a lot of insects will see that, and that's how they can be attracted to flowers and such. A lot of nature is set up to attract in that range. And then over here, we're talking about there's not much need for humans to see this stuff except for a lava flow or something like that. And we will see it sometimes in the red range right there. Fire, that kind of thing. Now, the sensors that are in our cameras are usually CMOS sensors. Sometimes they're CCD, but for this instance, both of them have about the same sensitivity. Usually your higher end cameras will use CCD, and the cheap cameras that we're using use CMOS. And the reason they use that is the power consumption is lower and the resolution is not so critical for the things that we're looking for. So they don't want to put the additional cost and also the power consumption. Keep in mind, we are going to be running these on batteries most of the time, so power consumption is paramount. Other than using a higher end sensor, your LEDs are actually, when they're being used, are a big power. You can leave a camera out in the field for probably over a year if it was only taking pictures in the daytime. But nighttime pictures or videos of very short duration, we're bringing that down just to a matter of months. So let's take a look about where their sensitivity is, and we'll get a good idea while we make changes here. So if we look at sensitivity, and then basically the nanometers over here, that they are much more sensitive. They can go down to even 350 and over like 1,000. Now remember, our viewing range was more around about 300 to say 750, like that. But the CMOS, basically, it can see like this and goes all the way over to the 1,000. So where that causes a problem is that it's seeing a lot of stuff that we don't need to see. And when it does that, it washes things out. So I will show you some little video that I've taken with these cameras where I have disabled the infrared filter that's on there, and you will see that you pretty much, for the biggest thing you'll notice is you'll lose seeing green on, which is we kind of like want to do when we want daylight. So if you are only to use your cameras only at nighttime, then you wouldn't need this, but these cameras are set up for both. Here's an example of the IR cut filter is on. You'll notice that there's green and the colors are full and deep and robust. And then this next view, we have the no filter on, and notice how the green is gone, the colors are all washed out. Next, we're going to go into my washroom, and this is no cut filter, but we're using the infrared light. And then we have the infrared light on, but the cut filter is on, so it eliminates the infrared. Here we use white light, so you can see it's actually working. Now, because of this sensitivity that the CMOS sensors have, even with filters on, which we'll describe in a moment, they can still see a little bit of the infrared light. So as an example, here is a controller to a Roomba, and you'll notice I'm going to give a little bit of a push on here, and you'll see it lining up. And I just turned my Roomba on, so we'll just turn that back off. And another example is a TV set here, and we'll see, look at this. And you can see this. Now, if you were to look at this with your naked eye, you wouldn't see that. Now, I would like to show you how this would work on the LEDs, but all you would get is that blown out look. It's whether it's daylight or not, that's what you're going to see. So even with a filter in place, it still is able to see a little bit of it. Now, the filter is going to eliminate this whole big extra curve, even though those little remote control devices, controllers actually punch through just a little bit, but it got rid of most of it right here. So in order to do that with our cameras here, we use an IR cut filter. And right inside, this is where our lens is. Right inside here is a little actuator that that allows that filter to be flipped back and forth. And it's usually done electronically, so I'm going to use a magnet here. I'm going to be real quiet and see if you can hear it go click. And then I'm going to turn over the polarity and make it go back the other way. There we go. By doing that, it's going to allow the camera to present the best image. And in our cameras that we use in our cell phones, we may be able to see the remote control and it's aimed directly at it, but anything in complete darkness we're not going to see, even with illumination. And I have tested that just to be sure, because I would sure like to use my cell phone to do some of this stuff here. So, and by the way, these are the motion detectors right in here, and we will go into that in another video. Please remember to subscribe and share this video to help disabled animals with donated wheelchairs.